Marcus and Devin were hired into the same firm during the same hiring cycle, same department, same orientation week, same entry-level title, same $48,000 a year. If you'd asked anyone who watched them work, they'd have told you Marcus was the one to bet on. He was the first one in and the last one out. He took on the projects nobody else wanted. He answered his phone on weekends. He never pushed back, never made waves, never gave a single person in that building a reason to think twice about him. 4 years go by. Devin is now a department lead, pulling in $81,000 a year, getting invited to strategy sessions with people 3 levels above him. Marcus, same cubicle, same title with a slightly fancier name. $61,000 after a couple of cost of living bumps. Still first in, still last out. And for the first time in 4 years, sitting in his car in the parking lot at 7 in the evening, seriously wondering if he wasted them. Not because the work got harder, because he finally let himself ask the one question he'd been avoiding for 2 solid years. What does Devin understand that I don't? I want you to actually sit with that for a moment. Because if you're the person who shows up, puts in the hours, does everything the right way, and still feels like the ground isn't moving under you, then this is going to land differently than every other career video you've clicked on. Because the answer is not work harder. You're already maxed out on that. The answer is 12 specific moves that the Devins of every organization make quietly, on purpose, week after week, while most of the people around them have no idea these moves even exist. And here's the part that should genuinely bother you a little. Some of these are so quiet, so polished, so professional that you have almost certainly watched someone pull one off right in front of your face and never once connected it to why they climbed and you stayed put. That ends right here. I'm Henry, and on this channel, we don't do feel-good filler. We deal in the actual mechanics of how careers get built. So I'm going to hand you the real playbook, the one grounded in how workplaces actually function behind the curtain. No softening it. There's an old line worth remembering here. The things you do every day matter more than the things you do once in a while. These 12 moves are the everyday things. Stick with me all the way through, because each one stacks on the last, and I'm holding the most overlooked, most powerful move for the very end. The one that, once it clicks, makes every other move on this list make sense. Don't jump ahead, don't click away. Let's get into it. Let's start with the one that's hiding right out in the open. The one almost nobody admits is real. Move number 1. They make their work visible without ever crossing into bragging. There's a belief that quietly wrecks more careers than laziness ever could, and it's this. Good work speaks for itself. It does not. Not in a company of 50 people. Definitely not in a company of 500. Your manager is juggling a dozen people, absorbing pressure from their own bosses, sitting in meetings you'll never see, chasing numbers that have nothing to do with watching your screen. They are not tracking your wins in real time. Nobody is. The data backs this up bluntly. Studies on performance evaluation have repeatedly shown that employees who keep their supervisors lightly informed of their progress get rated meaningfully higher than employees doing identical work in silence. Same output, higher score. The only difference was that one of them spoke up. Smart employees figured out how to share a quick, well-timed, low-key update, not every day, not in a way that reeks of insecurity, just strategically. Something like, wanted to give you a heads up, I closed out the Reyes account 2 days early, and the feedback was strong. That's the whole thing. 20 seconds. And now there's a note in your manager's head with your name on it, attached to a win. Those notes pile up. And piled up notes are exactly what gets pulled out when promotion decisions get made. Being seen is not arrogance. Being invisible is not modesty. It's a choice, and most people are making it without ever realizing they made it. This next one is where the distance between average and genuinely impressive shows up immediately. Move number 2, they never drop a problem on someone's desk without bringing at least one possible fix. Picture a normal Tuesday. Something breaks on a major account. 2 people catch it at the same moment. The first one, call him Tyler, walks into the office and says, "Hey, we've got a real problem on the Wallace account, and honestly, I'm not sure what happened." The second one, Priya, fires off a message. "Heads up, there's an issue on the Wallace account. Here's my read on what caused it. Here are 2 paths we could take. I'm leaning toward the second, but wanted your call before I move on it." From that day forward, those 2 people live in completely different categories in the manager's mind. When you bring a problem with nothing attached, you become more work. You become someone who has to be managed. When you bring a problem with a thought out option behind it, you become a resource, someone who's already thinking a level up. The research on leadership potential lines up with this every time. The people flagged as future leaders aren't the ones who dodge problems. They're the ones who walk into problems already a step ahead. It's not about being right on the first try. It's about showing the mindset of someone who already belongs upstairs before anyone hands them the keys. And here's the one that almost everyone underrates. Move number 3. They build relationships across the building long before they need a single one of them. Most employees manage exactly one relationship at work: their direct boss. That is the single most fragile spot you can put yourself in. Smart employees build real connections everywhere, with people in departments they never touch, with senior folks they don't report to, with the newest hires sitting below them on the chart. Why does it matter in practical terms? Because when a fresh project lands, when a new role gets quietly created, when leadership is in a room deciding who to tap for something good, they don't always post it anywhere. They talk about people. And the person whose name comes up is the one who's actually known across the organization, not the one buried in their own corner. A huge share of opportunities, the kind that genuinely change a career, never get publicly posted. They get filled in conversations you're not invited to, based on relationships you either built or didn't. And this is the part that cuts deepest. How you treat people who have less power than you tells the entire company exactly who you are. Leaders watch that more closely than almost anything. The way you talk to the front desk, the way you treat the intern, the way you carry yourself when the boss has left the room. That follows you up the ladder, or it quietly keeps you off it. Now pay attention to this next one because it's stealing years from people who don't even realize it. Move number 4. They know the difference between being busy and being strategic. Walk into any office anywhere and ask how someone's doing. They'll say swamped or crazy busy, and they'll say it like it's something to be proud of. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Busy is the easy part. There is always something to fill your hours. Emails that don't actually need you, meetings you could skip, tasks that feel productive but move absolutely nothing forward. Strategic is a whole different animal. Strategic means your energy is consistently aimed at the work your leadership genuinely cares about, the stuff tied to revenue, the problems keeping executives awake, the goals that get reviewed when the higher-ups sit down each quarter. Smart employees ask one question early in every quarter that most people never think to ask. They go to their manager and say, "What does a great quarter look like for this team, and where can I make the biggest dent?" That single question hands you a map. And people with a map move faster than people who are just busy. When evaluation time comes, nobody gets celebrated for how packed their calendar was. They get judged on whether the things that mattered actually moved. Figure out what those things are, then work backward from there. Everything else is just noise dressed up as productivity. This next one matters to anyone who's ever been blindsided in a review. Move number 5. They go hunting for honest feedback long before the annual review ever shows up. Here's a scene that plays out in offices constantly. Someone sits down for their yearly review fully expecting smooth sailing. They worked hard, no disasters, everything felt fine. Then the manager starts laying out concerns, patterns, perceptions that had apparently been building for months, and the employee is hearing all of it for the very first time. That's not bad luck. That's a broken system, and smart people refuse to live inside it. They check in on their own, halfway through the year, right after a big project wraps, during casual one-on-ones. Not anxiously, confidently, something like, "I want to make sure I'm showing up the way this team actually needs. Is there anything I should be sharpening?" That one question pulls off 3 things at once. It signals you're self-aware. It gives your manager a low-stakes door to raise small issues before they harden into permanent ones. And it tells everyone watching that you're the kind of person who develops yourself instead of waiting around to be corrected. People who keep these feedback conversations going all year are far more likely to feel engaged at work and far less likely to get ambushed at review time. The annual review should feel like a recap of conversations you've already had, not a surprise you walked into unarmed. Now here's something the career books skip over, but every sharp professional eventually figures out. Move number 6. They carry themselves like the role above them before anyone offers it. You've seen this even if you never had a name for it. There's always that one person who somehow just seems like they already belong at the next level. The way they stay steady under pressure, the way they speak in meetings, the way they frame a problem in terms of the whole business, not just their slice of it. And when a leadership spot opens up, nobody's surprised their name surfaces. That's not luck, that's strategy. Research on promotions points to a striking pattern. One of the strongest predictors of getting promoted is whether your manager already sees you operating at the next level. Promotions tend to confirm an identity rather than create one. Smart employees study the people one rung above them. How do they communicate? What do they ask in meetings? How do they react when something goes sideways? Then they start genuinely and authentically bringing those behaviors into their current role. This isn't an act, it's development. And the steady, compounding effect is that by the time the promotion decision lands on the table, the answer already feels obvious to everyone in the room. This next one is something the sharp ones do silently, and it protects them in ways most people never see coming. Move number 7. They document everything, their contributions, their conversations, their confirmations. There was a guy, call him Andre, who thought he was rock solid with his manager. Good rapport, positive feedback, the works. Then a restructuring swept through and Andre was told his position was being cut, citing performance. He was stunned, and he had nothing. No emails, no written record of his wins, no paper trail of the praise he'd gotten, just his memory. And memory doesn't hold up in those rooms. Smart employees document quietly and constantly. After any meaningful verbal conversation, they send a short follow-up. Just confirming what we discussed, I'm taking the lead on the Brennan project with the 15th as the deadline. That's not paranoia, that's professionalism. They keep a private running file of weekly wins, finished projects, and positive feedback, not to be dramatic. To have ammunition when it's time to ask for a raise, make the case for a promotion, or protect their record. The people who come through uncertain times intact are not always the most talented. They're the most documented. Your contributions are only as real as the proof that backs them up. Here's the one that feels small, but the long-term impact is enormous. Move number 8. They develop themselves instead of waiting to be developed. In most companies, training is reactive. You get onboarded, you get the occasional workshop, you get whatever your employer decides to spring for, usually because there's a compliance box to check or a budget to burn before year end. That's not a development plan, that's a floor. Smart employees invest in themselves consistently on their own time, certifications, industry reading, online courses, conversations with people who are 10 years further down the road. People who pursue self-directed learning outside of work are significantly more likely to get promoted and to land above the median pay for their role. Think about the compounding effect of just 5 focused hours a week of self-development over 3 years. That produces a version of you that reads completely differently on paper and shows up completely differently in a room than the person who only grew when the company forced it. Your employer is responsible for training you for your job. You are responsible for the entire trajectory of your career. That distinction changes everything. This next one is quiet, but it's ruthlessly powerful. Move number 9. They guard their reputation like it's the single most valuable thing they own. Because it is. Your reputation in a professional setting isn't just how people feel about you. It's the foundation under every opportunity that will ever reach you. Every referral, every introduction, every quiet internal tap before a role goes public, all of it runs through reputation, and it is shockingly easy to crack. One public moment of losing your cool, one comment that gets repeated in the wrong room, one frustrated email you fired off too fast, any of those can trail you for years inside an organization. Smart employees are deliberate. They don't vent about leadership to coworkers. They stay out of the gossip current. They don't send emails while they're angry. They don't say anything in a hallway they wouldn't want repeated in a boardroom. There's a well-worn line that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it, and it's stayed around because it keeps proving true. What builds the strongest reputations isn't a few standout moments. It's consistency. The person who shows up the same way, whether the VP is in the room or not, is the person whose reputation becomes an asset no amount of money can buy. Now here's the communication shift that makes leadership actually start paying attention to you. Move number 10. They learn to speak the language of business impact. There's a version of almost every sentence you say at work that sounds like a task, and a version that sounds like a business result. The sharp employee knows the difference and always picks the second one. I handled the support tickets this month sounds like a chore. I closed out 14 escalations this month, which cut churn in that customer segment by close to 18%. Sounds like a business driver, same work, wildly different impression. When you frame what you do in terms of revenue, cost, efficiency, growth, or risk, the language leadership actually thinks in, you stop sounding like someone doing a job and start sounding like someone who understands the business. And people who understand the business get pulled into rooms most employees never enter. This takes practice, but it's completely learnable. Start by asking yourself, what does my work actually affect at the business level? Then make a habit of saying it that way. Your next career conversation will feel like a different conversation entirely when you walk in speaking that language. This next one is statistically one of the highest impact moves you can make, and almost nobody makes it. Move number 11. They find a real mentor inside the organization and treat that relationship like gold. The average employee does not have a mentor inside their company, not a real one. They might have a manager who tosses out feedback now and then, but that's a reporting relationship, not mentorship. Smart employees identify someone 2 or 3 levels up whose path is worth studying, and they invest in a genuine professional relationship with that person. They show up with specific questions. They actually apply what they hear. They follow up. They make it clear the guidance is landing. That mentor becomes something no job posting can offer. They advocate for you in rooms you can't get into. They flag your name when something opens up. They give you the unfiltered version of how the place really works. Not the polished version, the real political map, the unwritten rules, the things that actually move the decision makers. Research has found that people with organizational mentors are dramatically more likely to be promoted than those without. That's not a small edge, that's a different career altogether. If you don't have a mentor inside your company right now, that is the single most important thing to take from this entire video. And here it is, the one I told you to stick around for, the move that reshapes how you'll approach work from here forward. Move number 12. They keep one eye on the future while delivering completely in the present. This is the move that separates people who build genuine leverage from people who spend whole decades quietly hoping somebody notices them. Smart employees are always doing 2 things at once. They're showing up fully for the role they hold today, delivering, building relationships, protecting their reputation. And at the very same time, they're quietly building the skills, the visibility, and the outside network for the role they want next. They don't wait for a promotion to start acting like someone who deserves one. They don't wait for a review to update their resume. They don't wait for a layoff announcement to start building relationships beyond the company walls. They treat their career like a business. Their skills are the product. Their reputation is the brand. Their network is how it all gets distributed. And they keep investing in all 3 even when everything feels stable and comfortable, because here's what stable and comfortable actually is looked at honestly. It's preparation for a moment that hasn't arrived yet. And when that moment does come, when a role opens, when the company restructures, when the right conversation happens at the right time, the prepared person steps right into it. The comfortable person gets caught flat-footed. There's a piece of wisdom worth carrying out of here. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Applied steadily over 5 years, that single idea builds a completely different life than the one you're currently coasting toward. So here's where we land. Marcus kept grinding and kept waiting to be noticed. Devin learned these 12 moves, some by instinct, some from a mentor, some the hard way, and ran them quietly and consistently every single week. The gap between those 2 careers wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it wasn't which one the boss happened to like. It was 12 deliberate habits compounding over time until the difference became impossible to ignore. You've got the full blueprint now: visible communication, solution-first thinking, a network built in every direction, strategic focus over hollow busyness, feedback gathered early, leadership presence before the title, documented contributions, self-directed growth, a reputation you protect like it's irreplaceable, fluency in the language of business impact, a real mentor in your corner, and a career you're actively building instead of passively waiting on. So pick one of these and start on it today, not next Monday, today. If this gave you something real, something that genuinely shifts how you show up tomorrow morning, go ahead and hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, and drop a comment telling me which of these 12 hit you the hardest, because the people who watch this and do nothing will still be sitting in that parking lot next year, wondering. The ones who move on it today are going to be the Devin in somebody else's story, and that version of you starts right now.